The following clips have been played so often that I fear cloying my regular viewers. I play them again to make a very important point. This is what Kenneth Flodin thinks of the governing body.
At Matthew 24:45-47, we read that for the time of the end, Jesus would appoint a faithful and discreet slave or governing body to explain the Bible to his followers and help them to grow in understanding of the truth.
And this is one of the men who teach Kenneth Flodin the Bible.
Well, for many years, our understanding was that these were good people. In fact, these were Jehovah's people. These were Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's obvious that we have some thinking to do. We have to look for a different explanation.
And in this video, we are going to see how good a Bible student Kenneth Flodin is. Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Watchtower Examination. My name is Winston and I have never been a Jehovah's Witness. Jehovah's Witnesses are treated at the website jw.org to various talks by members of the governing body and other officers from Bethel generally. And they call it morning worship. These talks generally last about 10 minutes, and they generally are centered around one verse. Kenneth Flodin is doing the morning worship on one very simple verse from the book of Proverbs. Before we take Flodin, let us take the verse. Proverbs 21 Verse 5. I give you the King James Version. It says, "The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteousness, but of every one that is hasty, only to want." The NIV says,
"The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty."
The Amplified Bible says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance and advantage, but everyone who acts in haste comes surely to poverty." The message is very simple. It's very clear. A contrast is being made between financial success and poverty. Those who work hard and are diligent in what they do, who plan what they are doing, tend to achieve financial success, tend to achieve abundance, tend to achieve riches, if you may, or at the very least, financial independence. But the person who doesn't plan, who makes hasty decisions, tends to end up in poverty. That is what Solomon is talking about. Kenneth Flodin is going to do the morning worship on this one verse. His talk lasts for 7 minutes and 20 seconds.
Now, in our entirety, Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent surely lead to success, but all who are hasty surely head for poverty." Now, that is not a Bible law. It's a Bible principle.
Brilliant. It's not a Bible law. The very first thing that he has to tell us that it is not a Bible law. It is a Bible principle. And then he goes on for the majority of his morning worship talk about the difference between a law and a principle.
But sometimes a specific law of God is underpinned by a basic truth or principle. For example, Deuteronomy 22:8. It was a law. Israelites had to build a parapet wall around the flat roof of their home, prevent people from falling, being injured, or possibly killed. That was a law. But what was the underlying principle? It was respect for human life.
That's 5 minutes into Kenneth Flodin's talk on Proverbs 21, verse 5. 5 minutes of the 7-minute talk. Is that what Proverbs 21, verse 5 is about? And maybe you would think that, all right, he may have chosen Proverbs 21, verse 5. But the point of his talk is the difference between law and principle. Would you like to hear the topic of Flodin's talk? Kenneth Flodin, the plans of the diligent. Proverbs 21, verse 5. So, the plans of the diligent apparently is all about the difference between a Bible law and a Bible principle. But while Kenneth Flodin went on with his preamble, because for 5 minutes it is a preamble, he has not yet really touched on what the verse is really saying. So in his preamble came this gem.
So when some issue or decision is about to jump out in front of us, we need to slow down and search for a principle. Please find Ephesians chapter 5. It has a phrase that coincides with searching for a principle. We'll read verse 15 first of all. It says, "So keep strict watch that how you walk is not as unwise, but as wise persons." Well, that could be simply obeying a Bible law. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal.
So, in his 7-minute talk about the plans of the diligent, we are now to look into finding a principle, and he's going to turn to the book of Ephesians. But apparently, Kenneth Flodin has forgotten what Jeffrey Jackson, the one who came to explain the Bible to him, said about the law.
So at one point, perhaps a person might say to us, do you believe that we are still under the 10 Commandments? Perhaps you may diplomatically answer, well, I believe we're under the principles of the 10 Commandments and the law of love, the law of the Christ. Perhaps you might take them through a series of scriptures, such as Romans chapter 10, verse 4, where it says Christ is the end of the law. You might read Galatians chapter 4, verses 4 and 5, where it says those under the law were released. Or Ephesians 2, verse 15, where it speaks of the law being abolished.
Well, that could be simply obeying a Bible law. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal.
So Jackson told him that they don't live according to the law anymore. The 10 Commandments are abolished. They live by the principle, the law of the Christ, said Jackson. The law is abolished. We live by the principle. And so, Flodin, instead of following his Bible instructor and go with the principle and the law of the Christ, goes back to the abolished law.
Well, that could be simply obeying a Bible law. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal.
And the topic of his talk, may I remind you, the plans of the diligent. But, ladies and gentlemen, there are 2 minutes left. And so, Flodin is going to finally touch on Proverbs 21, verse 5. And maybe what it means? Let's see.
So our text, Proverbs 21:5, it's a principle. That means it can be applied to so many different situations in our life. And again, it says, the plans of the diligent surely lead to success, but all who are hasty surely head for poverty. So what are some situations that our publications have applied that principle to?
So, to understand the subject naturally, you're going to look at some of the circumstances that their publications have applied the principle of Proverbs 21 verse 5 to. And, ladies and gentlemen, brace yourself for the very first principle that Flodin is going to apply, the principle of being diligent for success or not making plans for poverty that leads to poverty. Listen to this gem. The first application in their publications worthy of mention by Kenneth Flodin.
Well, one is commenting on meetings. We have to plan ahead to have success.
Commenting in their meetings.
Well, one is commenting on meetings. We have to plan ahead to have success.
You have to plan ahead in order to have success. Proverbs 21 verse 5 that speaks about planning diligently for financial success versus not making plans that lead you to poverty. The first application that Flodin felt worthy of mention, how their publications have applied this principle, is making plans to comment at Watchtower meetings so you can be successful. What is there about Watchtower meetings commenting on to planning for to be successful? I have a plan. Repeat what is said in the Watchtower magazine and you're successful. Because that is all that it is. They go to their Watchtower study. They regurgitate what is said in the Watchtower publication. And that, for Kenneth Flodin, apparently is success. Then he was to move on to an even bigger situation where Proverbs 21 verse 5 can be applied. The principle of Proverbs 21 verse 5.
Or maybe we're in some form of full-time service and our parents become seriously ill. Well, Proverbs 21:5 said, do not be hasty. So we should not hastily conclude that we have to give up our privilege of service.
Now, this is where I'm not a violent person and I do not promote violence on this channel. This is where you wish you could take at least your finger and give this man a serious conk. We call it a conk in Jamaica. A serious conk in his head. You are in full-time service. Full-time service. We're discussing a verse that discusses financial success versus poverty. Jehovah's Witnesses take a vow of poverty to serve this organization, as it were. I've heard it said, I've never seen the vow. I don't know if they take a literal vow. Maybe I should research it. I did not do that before doing this video. Or by virtue of their decision, they are not in a literal sense, but making a vow of poverty. You're going to lead a simple life, to go in full-time service, volunteering your time to serve the Watchtower organization under the guise of serving Jehovah. Remember that to leave the organization is to leave Jehovah. And to come back to Jehovah is to come back to the Watchtower organization. But that is for another day and another time. But Flodin is going to use the principle of Proverbs 21 verse 5 to tell Jehovah's Witnesses that if you are in full-time service and you get the message not that your parent is ill, but let us hear his word again.
And our parents become seriously ill.
Not even one parent, but your parents, plural, your mother and your father, not just become ill, but become seriously ill. Flodin is telling Jehovah's Witnesses, don't be hasty. And that is what Proverbs 21 verse 5 is telling you. Do not be hasty to think that you have to give up your full-time service to go attend to your parents, your mother and your father. Let me give Flodin a Bible law. And I don't know if Jackson will tell him to live by the principle or the law itself.
Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you.
Your mother and your father are seriously ill. But Flodin is more concerned about how much time you give to this satanic organization than you going to attend to your parents who are seriously ill. This is what Flodin is talking to Jehovah's Witnesses about in discussion of a verse that speaks to making plans for financial success or not making plans that lead to poverty. And it is so ironic because Jehovah's Witnesses, so many Jehovah's Witnesses have not made plans for their retirement because of full-time service that lead them to poverty. That is what Proverbs 21 verse 5 is talking about, if anything, as it applies to Jehovah's Witnesses. You and your failure to make plans for your future, hasty to go serve Watchtower organization, hasty to go into full-time service, no plans for your financial success, and it leads you to poverty after you have given a vow of poverty to serve this organization. These people do not understand the Bible. And I'll be doing a video soon where I will be discussing this I'll be discussing what I consider the silliest aspect of being a Jehovah's Witness. And that, I can tell you from now, is the dumb decision to allow these biblical nitwits to tell you what the Bible means. And worse than that, Bible prophecy. They can't explain Proverbs 21 verse 5. But you expect them to explain Ezekiel and Daniel and Revelation to you. Have mercy. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. And until the next, may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.